Do I save interest if I pay fortnightly rather than monthly? Hey team, and welcome back to episode 14 of Fact Mondays. Now today's question is, do I save interest if I pay fortnightly rather than monthly? Now this is something that's hotly discussed online, and it seems like a lot of people get misconstrued in the details. So I thought I'd run through some of the numbers today, explain how it kind of works, and then potentially give you some tips on how to actually get the most out of this strategy. So today, our situation is a $500,000 loan on 4.49%. Now don't get too worried about those details. It does scale with whatever lending you are getting. A monthly repayment on this amount of lending based on a 30-year term minimum repayments would be $2,530. The fortnightly repayment would be $1,167. Now you may note that that is less than half, and I'll explain that in a moment. And then a weekly repayment would be $584, roughly half of your fortnightly. The difference overall in this interest cost over a 30-year term is as little as about $600. Now, $600 is nothing to shake a stick at, but over 30 years, it is very, very minimal, especially when you're looking at an overall cost, regardless, of about $910,000. Now, you may have noticed before that I mentioned that the fortnightly repayment is not half of a monthly repayment. And the reason for this is that most months are actually more than 4 weeks. This is often what gets misconstrued in the argument of paying fortnightly rather than monthly. Now, the way to do this is generally to look at your monthly repayment, which is again going to be a little over 4 weeks, and then pay that as your fortnightly repayment. What this effectively does is put more onto the principal and shorten the loan term due to the fact that you are paying more than a usual fortnightly repayment. Now, if we were to do this, essentially what we'd be looking at is half of that $2,530, which is $1,265. This is increasing the minimum fortnightly repayment by about $98. What this does is reduces your overall interest over the life of the loan by about $70,000 and actually saves you about 4.5 years on that mortgage. You'll essentially pay it off 4.5 years earlier. Now, this is essentially how that works. Now, it doesn't actually require you to pay more often, it just requires you to pay more into the principal. So whether you're doing monthly, fortnightly, or weekly payments, if you pay more principal into the loan or essentially increase those minimum repayments, you are paying more off early, which saves you interest over time. When it actually comes down to whether or not you choose monthly, fortnightly, or weekly, my suggestion is to look at your own personal financial commitments, your own personal financial management, and your own preference to make sure that that actually aligns better. From there, you can then put a strategy in place in order to pay more principal off faster and get yourself debt-free earlier. Now, if you want to have a little bit of a play with these numbers yourself, you can jump onto our website, www.keyandcompass.co.nz. You can find our calculator there and see what additional repayments will actually do for you. And if you want to put a strategy together, feel free to reach out to me directly and we can have a chat. Anyway, make sure you like and subscribe, and we'll see you next week.